Hello and welcome to the channel if you're new, and welcome back if you're not. Today I'm just going to go through something that is a pretty common issue with a lot of people, and that is knowing when you've done enough with the burr that you're currently using before moving on. The biggest time waster I found when I first started, when it was with sandpaper or when it was with the rotary tool over here, or whether it was with whetstones, it's all the same, is moving on to the next grit too quickly. So going backwards is easily the biggest time waster. So if I switch the screens over here, so here's an image of the recent piece that we did. That's the little teardrop boulder that turned out so well. This is the kind of appearance you want after you've finished with your highest grit of diamond burr. So if we look at this, it's the 350 grit diamond burr. And this is the overall appearance. Now you want to have your shaping almost done at this point. You might not have it perfect, as here you can see I've left a few of these little chipped areas in. That's just because I got a little bit worried. I think I explained it in that video. I got a little bit worried about it chipping any further, so I like to switch over to the Nova resin tips, the black one in particular, which is why it's fairly well worn out. It does get the most use by far. But yeah, so you get this frosted looking appearance. There's huge pits and stuff. If I just zoom right in here, you can see it's just huge pits still. A whole heap of holes everywhere. It almost looks like a golf ball once it's dried and fogged like that. So that's the 350 grit diamond burr. You just want it to have a nice even consistency of basically not being able to see the color at all. You don't want any huge gouges or anything in it, because that'll just mean that you're taking longer with the Nova tip. And these are much harder wearing, longer lasting, and surprisingly much cheaper than the Nova tips. So we'll move on now to the Nova tips. So the 280 grit Black Nova, here you can see the shape of it. It's kind of getting a little bit wonky. I'm using the middle here a little bit too much. If you notice in my videos and pay real close attention, I've been trying to use these bottom edges a lot more. It's a part that kind of gets neglected, so it's actually quite thick. And I want to kind of wear that down and catch it up with the rest of it, so I'm trying to be very conscious about that. But after the 280, you've pretty much got the shaping correct. There was a little bit more work that I wanted to do on this side, but the problem was that the dop stick, I accidentally glued it too close to this edge. Oh, well, I actually cut a surprising amount off this edge. So there's this little divot in here, which I fix up later on. There's this little, it's a little bit non-symmetrical if you have a look at these 2 points here. This one's got a bit of a shoulder here, whereas this one's got it down here. So I do still need to go, I haven't even done it yet. I've only just got it off the dot, but I do need to cut that little edge off, and all that brown ironstone you can see peeking around the corner, that's all going to go to make it replicate this side a little bit more. It was pretty symmetrical, but not quite enough for me to close the chapter on that one. But if we look real close now at the 280 grit stage, you can still see that there's these cut marks over here on the left. And across the entire surface, you can see that these little, kind of small little cutting marks. It's more pronounced here where the light was less direct on it. And you can see all of these. This is not a problem. So this is kind of the standard look that you want to see when you're finished with your Black Nova before you want to move on to your brown. So you don't need to panic that there's still marks. The Black Nova at this kind of grit still does leave a lot of cutting marks around the place. But you're starting to see that color come through now. You're starting to see the patterns behind it. That's what you want to look for when you're done with your Black Nova. So I'll move on now to the 600 grit Brown Nova. So that's it there. It's getting fairly worn, but you can see it's nowhere near as bad as the black yet. I'm still trying to consciously use that bottom edge to even it out. And I don't know why, but if you look at the color of my finger, I was like death gripping it for this picture. I can't explain it. But here you can see it's still fairly similar. A lot of those obvious marks are now gone, but you can still just see a few cutting marks if you're really, really looking close. And these were all shot with the macro lens that I'm currently using. And the macro lens, I believe, if I have a look here, so it's got a 20 times magnification on it. So the loop that I use, the loop, it's in a little container here, the loop that I use actually has two mirrors on it, you can see here, and a little light. I don't use the light that much, let's blind you guys. So 2 little mirrors, and this is a 10 and a, oh, is it a 10? I actually can't remember. I think it's a 10 and a 30 times magnification. So this macro lens is just between those. And you can see here that there's still a fair bit of scuffage, but you're starting to get to that frosted glass, like in the frosted glass bathroom windows that you can see. So there are some marks if you get the light hitting it just right, but all in all, it's mainly just that frosted kind of appearance. After the brown, you also want to have your shaping pretty much spot on. So you can see that I managed to make that edge a little bit nicer, this edge a little bit nicer, all the edges basically a little bit nicer. You want to get that point correct if you've got any points on your cut. This is really your last chance of shaping the stone in any kind of major way. Actually, even I think major way you have to use the black Nova, which is why it's so worn out for me. This Nova is really just little minor changes, little edges, whether you want to round some edges off or whatever, that's where this comes in. But then we move on to the 1200. Now the 1200 is when you're starting to get rid of that frost. So you can see here, depending on where the light is coming in from, you can see that it is starting to get a little bit of shine to it. Not a lot. There's still a lot of fog here and you're not seeing the pattern perfectly, but there is quite a bit of clarity in comparison to the brown. So there you can see much wider, less color. Here you can see much more color coming through. So those lines and everything are far more distinct at this point. And if we zoom right in on it, you can see that there's no real clear marks. I tried before taking these pictures to make sure that any cutting marks that would appear would be horizontal on our screen. So I've got a really good close look here and there's really not much. You just want that light frosting appearance. Really minor frosting. No serious horizontal lines there that I can see. And then we move on to the 3000. So now you can spend as much time, you don't need to be worried about the shape changing too much with the 3000, so you can spend a lot of time here. That's another way to waste a lot of time when you're carving, and you'll end up spending way too long on some of these pieces, is if you just keep using the 3000, which is why it's so important to know when to stop. And you can see here, my 3000 is pretty much undamaged at this point in time, except for a little mistake I made early on when I first got them. That I think I explained in the video, but I hit an edge of one of the opals on the backing when I was trying to polish up the surface. I hit the edge and it caused a little bit of a divot, which I was really unhappy about. But you can see it's pretty much intact. And now if we have a close look here at 3000 grit, you are getting right to a pre-polished stage. Some people even stop here. You can see there's a little bit of unevenness here, which I think is mainly just the light, but it's pretty much, you should be able to see the pattern fully. A little bit of frosting. Don't be too concerned about it. The frosting does clear up. You can spend a lot longer on this. I think I did rush my 3000 grit Nova and went back to it and did a little bit more, but didn't take a fresh picture. But yeah, you can see here, it's starting to get areas of some nice shine. And sometimes this will actually produce a pretty good finish on your stone to the point where you might not. If it's a low quality stone, I have at times stopped here and not gone for the cerium oxide. So it is an option. Sometimes with boulder opal, if you've got ironstone, there's actually, this produces quite a good finish on the ironstone. I don't have a picture of that unfortunately. But once you've got to this stage and you're pretty much happy with your pre-polish, that's when you switch over to the cerium oxide and just give it the final polish. Now it doesn't look all that great in this picture. I don't think I put the macro lens. No, I did put the macro lens on. The macro lens is causing a little bit of focusing issues, but you should see that the pattern now is clearly identifiable and everything. All the lines and stuff are visible. I wish they weren't there. I'm not too sure. It's a bit of character, but it would have been nice if the whole stone looked like this. and you get that nice mirror finish. So for this, I'll actually switch over to here. So this is part of the last video, and you can see here that if I angle this around and move it a bit, oh, you can see right here, you get that nice kind of mirrorish finish. It's just overexposed. This macro lens is really hard to deal with because my phone has a autofocus that keeps bringing it in and out, so it's a little bit annoying. But you should see these flares, and anytime you see this, touch the surface of this opal, you should be able to see your fingerprints appear on it. And the fingerprints should really annoy you because it's quite, there we go, that's a little bit better. So you can see here, there's a little bit of fingerprinting there that you can see. So you should be able to see your fingerprints on here, and that's literally the only marks you should see. No frosting, none of that, unless your opal is a little bit milky and cloudy, but in this case it's quite a nice opal having a look at it. It's a little bit milky, which is why I guess the camera is emphasizing that a bit. But all in all, it's not too bad. And you should be able to move this light across the surface and pick up any kind of scratches or imperfections. But really, you should have gotten rid of them all by now. God, that opal turned out nice. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I can really say about it. Just, you'll get a hang for it. After the first few times, you'll understand. And without the experience of actually doing it, it's pretty hard. I'm just trying to hopefully help you guys a bit to at least have an idea of what you're really looking for when you're looking at these opals at each of the stages, just because moving on too quickly is a huge time waste, because I've had times where I've gone all the way through the novas really quickly, got to the rose, and just couldn't see the pre-polished forming quite right. And I've had to go all the way back to like the black and brown novas, especially if you hit there's a little scuff somewhere that you didn't see, like a deep groove. A single scratch can set you back hours, because then you're back to the black novas, making sure that scratch is gone. Brown, spend a few minutes there to get rid of everything that the black just messed up, and then yeah, grey and pink. And make sure you just hit every surface nice and evenly. You'll see me do it in all of my videos. I pretty much pick a pattern depending on the shape of the stone, and I just do that over and over again. I mean, I speed up my footage and cut out a lot, because sometimes you're spending hours on these. Well, maybe not hours per stage, but the entire process can go for hours. Sometimes I've got, I don't know, 2 hours of footage that I crush down into like a 10-20 minute video. So there is a lot that goes into it. And yeah, you'll end up with a nice shiny opal where you should literally just see these nice, beautiful, bright flashes. Well, and the reflections. Make sure you can see a reflection. And yeah, you're over the moon if you come across a piece like this. This was quite good. It's one of the better boulders I've cut in a while from Nick Hoops. It actually came out of the gift parcel that Nick and Frank put together for me. So it's even better. But yeah, nice, bright, clear reflections. You don't want to see too much fuzziness or unevenness in the surface of the opal. And yeah, you're pretty much flying. This just makes me feel like I really need a better camera, but we will get there. We will get there eventually. This does a pretty good job. It does a pretty good job. It's quite a nice stone. Still looks better in person, but yeah. Anyway, that'll do for this video. Hopefully it helps someone out there. Like I said, sandpaper, whetstones, Dremels, cutting wheels, flat laps, everything. You need to know when you can move on, otherwise you're burning time. Spend too long on a single grit, you're burning time. Move on too quickly and have to come back to the start, you're burning time. So it's all about just being efficient and just getting the best finish you can by spending the minimum amount of time. And even with my video, and even if it does help, you're still going to have to do it once or twice, maybe even 10 times, until you get the feel. And then you change to a different type of opal, and it's completely different again. Boulder, Cooper Minterby is a completely different beast. Lightning Ridge, White Cliffs is actually a little bit of a strange opal. So yeah, you'll have to get used to a lot of a lot of differences between them, but start with one, learn, and you'll get there eventually, and I'm happy to help you as much as you need, so feel free to get in touch, leave comments, all that kind of stuff. I'm still a small channel, so I can get back to you if you need help, so yeah. Fire away, and I'll see you in the next video.